As a Thunder fan, I've made my own OKC Thunder big board videos prior to the NBA draft the past couple years, and if you happen to be following the channel for quite a while now, you know that I actually had Cason Wallace on top of my Thunder draft board last year, and it just felt really nice that it actually landed with OKC on draft night. Well, this year's draft might be a little different though, with the consensus that this 2024 NBA draft class has relatively weaker prospects compared to the past couple years. But just as Sam Presti said in his recent press conference, this draft class is actually good for contending teams, which I definitely agree on, because although it might lack consensus players with superstar type ceilings, I think this draft class is actually filled with NBA ready prospects who project to be high level role players who could contribute to winning teams like the Thunder right off the bat. Well, sure, with all the assets they have, the Thunder could trade up on draft night just like they did last year to potentially target a theoretically higher upside player. But in this video, with the assumption that OKC stays put on draft night, I'll talk about 3 prospects who I think could be available within OKC's draft range at number 12, who I think could fit well within the Thunder's existing core, and who I think could help push the team closer to becoming a championship level team as soon as next season. So let's get to it. The first prospect on my Thunder draft board is 6'9" Colorado forward Tristan Silva. While the German prospect might be considered a reach at number 12, especially considering he's an older prospect at 23 years old who also played 4 years in college. But what I really like about Silva is that despite him increasing his usage and shot volume each year, his efficiency has never really suffered and he just really played solid two-way basketball. And this past season, as a senior, Silva averaged a well-rounded 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 1.8 steals and blocks combined per game, all while shooting a highly efficient 56% from 2-point range, 40% from deep, and 84% from the free throw line. Standing 6'9" with a 6'10" wingspan, I think Silva will be a seamless fit in OKC as a do-it-all type of big wing coming off the bench. First of all, one of the biggest selling points of Silva's game is his defensive impact. Well, for sure, OKC already has a ton of lengthy and switchable wing defenders like Dort, Cason Wallace, J-Dub, Aaron Wiggins, Ousmane Dieng, and now even Alex Caruso. But outside of Dieng, all of those guys are within the 6'4" to 6'6" range. So I think adding a legitimate 6'9" forward in Silva to their rotation to potentially guard bigger forwards could really be helpful in terms of giving the team more flexibility on the defensive end without actually giving up size. As Silva enters the NBA already a fundamentally sound defender who can act as a reliable weak side helper on the paint, but who also has the mobility to switch on the perimeter while being capable of guarding positions 1 to 4. Silva doesn't necessarily generate a ton of blocks and steals, but what I love about his defense is that he seems to have really great footwork that enables him to stay attached to ball handlers, plus it also seems like he's always making the right kinds of rotations on the floor. In this possession, you can see Silva starting off by roaming the paint and acting as a potential weak side helper, but as the kick-out pass is made to the top of the key, you can see how Silva anticipates the next pass and how he quickly makes the closeout to the corners. Then you can just see how he's able to stay balanced and how he's able to absorb contact from his man on the way to the post before using his length and verticality to force the miss without even fouling. Then, in this play, you can see Silva defending a guard from the point of attack. The ball handler rejects the screen to get one step ahead on the drive, but just watch Silva match him stride for stride before catching him with a semi-chase down block right at the rim. With how solid he already is on that end of the floor, I can see Silva easily being a tailor-made fit with OKC's switch-everything type of defense. Although the good thing is, his impact also extends on the offensive end. Right off the bat in OKC, Silva should be able to slot in as a play finisher, whether it be as a cutter around the basket or as a spot-up shooter from deep. But it's definitely his outside shooting abilities that really stands out, as this past college basketball season, Silva ranked in the 94th percentile in terms of scoring off the catch, all while shooting 40% from 3 on a solid volume of 5 attempts per game. Plus, with him being an outside shooting threat, when defenders are forced to close out on him, Silva is also capable of taking advantage with his ability to put the ball on the floor to create his own shot, whether it be at the rim or from the mid-range. In fact, he ranked in the 78th percentile in terms of points produced per possession at the rim, and in the 61st percentile in terms of points produced per possession out of mid-range jumpers last season. Well, sure, Silva's handle still isn't crafty enough for him to be called a reliable on-ball creator from day one in the NBA, but I think he's still a solid on-ball decision maker, especially when you factor in his passing ability at 6'9". In this clip, De Silva acts as the pick-and-roll ball handler. He uses the screen, and as soon as he gets the switch, watch him use that narrow lane to make the precise one-handed bounce pass to his big man. Then here, you can see De Silva coming out of a side ball screen action, and from here, he proceeds to operate off the pick and roll. But instead of making a pass to his roll man on the crowded block, De Silva actually sees his teammate on the weak side, and again, he uses the tight passing lane and successfully makes the bounce pass to the cutter. Well, he wouldn't be asked to make frequent plays on the ball in OKC, but overall, with his passing vision and quick decision making, I could definitely see De Silva getting some secondary on-ball reps with the team, especially with OKC's system, which requires generating playmaking from every position. Well, it sounds cliche, but Tristan De Silva definitely plays solid basketball on both ends, and I think his stellar defense, off-ball scoring versatility, passing ability, and high feel for the game should make him a solid addition to OKC's second unit. And speaking of the second unit, the next prospect on my list who I think could also be an immediate impact piece coming off the bench for OKC is 6'10" Dayton big man Donon Holmes, who this past college season averaged 20 points and 8.5 rebounds per game as his team's go-to scoring option. Holmes is also an older prospect who played 3 years in college, whose size, rebounding, athleticism, and two-way versatility should immediately be valuable for the Thunder. Well, for a guy who stands 6'10", Holmes is a little bit thin with his listed weight of 220 pounds, but I think that lower weight definitely plays on his standout athleticism, which you can see with just how well coordinated he is when he moves on the floor. And what's even crazier is that he also pairs his athleticism with a soft touch around the basket. On the offensive end, you can dump the ball to him in the post, and Holmes can easily generate shots with his deep bag of moves in the paint, which includes drop steps and soft hooks. Overall, Holmes averaged a total of 6 post touches per game last season, and he ranked in the 83rd percentile of college basketball in terms of points produced per post-up possession. Having that kind of post-up big should give OKC a different dynamic to their offense. But also, his athleticism and skill becomes even more apparent when he has the ball on the perimeter, because from there, Holmes has enough juice to beat his man off the dribble and to get to the rim, where he's also capable of finishing through contact. In this play, Holmes starts by setting a ball screen, and as he pops out to the three-point line, watch him take advantage of the closeout by driving into the paint. He gets caught off, but he smartly takes his bigger defender into the post, where he uses a quick baseline spin to finish right at the rim. This time, Holmes receives the ball in the corner, where he actually uses a simple jab step and shot fake combo to create separation from his defender. He's met by a weak side helper in the paint, but Holmes contorts his body and uses his nice touch to finish even against contact. Although in OKC, Holmes would definitely have to function more as a ball screener for the Thunder shot creators. And the good thing is, in college, Holmes has been very functional as a screener. After setting a screen, he can either roll to the rim or slip out of his defender, but most importantly, he's very comfortable popping out to the three-point line. Well, to be fair, Holmes only took 83 attempts from deep this past season, but one of his best shots was his pick and pop three-pointer. He has a consistent quick release and fluid mechanics from deep, which has produced a highly efficient 38.6% mark from 3. He's someone who will immediately complement OKC's 5-out system, similar to what J. Will does on the offensive end as a screener and as a catch-and-shoot guy. Although I think Holmes' edge can actually be seen on the defensive end, as he's a bit more bouncy and more athletic than J. Will. First off, Holmes is a strong rebounder who has a quick second jump and who just has a great competitive nose for the ball. Again, he averaged 8.5 rebounds this past season, is also grabbed at least 1.5 offensive rebounds per game in each of his 3 years in college, and this past year, he actually registered a 23.7 defensive rebounding percentage, which is even a little bit higher than that of projected lottery big man Donovan Clingan. Plus, another area Holmes excels at is with his shot blocking. While I don't see him as a defensive anchor in the mold of Chet Holmgren, but Holmes has always been a tremendous shot blocker, and his block percentages in each of his 3 years in college were always above average for a center. And his 7-foot wingspan and excellent timing, combined with his ability to move his feet well both from the paint and the perimeter, should serve him well at the NBA level. So I think OKC could rely on him to act as a paint presence who can defend both traditional drop coverages and soft switches, especially when Chet Holmgren is on the bench. Overall, the two-way skills that Donon Holmes has, I think should make him a solid pick here for the Thunder if he's available at number 12. But moving on, the last guy on my list is more of a sleeper pick, I would say, but I actually think he might be one of the most underrated prospects from this draft class who I believe is lottery-type talent, and I'm talking about 6'8" Australian wing Johnny Furphy from Kansas. Well, as a freshman who played less than 14 minutes per game during the first half of the season, it's not surprising that Furphy's numbers aren't so eye-popping, at just 9 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist per game for the entire season. But as he became a starter during his team's last 19 games, Furphy's two-way versatility and high feel for the game, especially for a wing player like him, really started to become apparent. Well, first of all, the main appeal of Furphy's game can be seen with his off-ball shooting, especially when you combine that with his 6'8" frame. Well, I don't think he's a traditional movement shooter in the mold of Isaiah Joe, but I think Furphy has some of the best spatial and floor awareness from this draft class. He's constantly relocating to open spots to get looks from deep, and from there, he uses his fluid stroke and high release to drain shots at a really high level. Overall, this past college basketball season, Furphy ranked in the 97th percentile in terms of points produced out of jumpers and in the 94th percentile in terms of points produced out of spot-up three-pointers. Well, sure, he only shot 35% from deep, which might not seem over the top, but I think this is still actually a solid percentage for a freshman, especially considering he attempted three-pointers at a high volume of 125 attempts, which is basically triple that of Cody Williams' attempts and basically 4 times the amount taken by Motas Bazelis, both of whom are big wings who are considered lottery prospects in this year's draft. In addition, Furphy's floor awareness also comes on display with how he's able to find open lanes when he's cutting to the basket and with how he's able to run and become an outlet in transition. But what I really like about Furphy is that he also combines his awareness with superb timing, which allowed him to grab 1.3 offensive rebounds per game. And when he pairs his effort on that end with his floor spacing ability, he was able to generate some beautiful possessions for Kansas. Just like in this play, you can initially see Furphy standing on the weak side, but as his teammate launches a three-pointer, watch Furphy run into the paint as he out-hustles 2 opponents to get the offensive board. He sends the ball out for a possession reset before quickly positioning himself on the corner as he calls for the ball and hits the wide-open three-pointer. Then here, you can see Furphy standing on the corners, and as Dickinson shoots the 3, again Furphy outworks his man to crash the boards before wisely giving the ball up to DeJuan Harris. And with the corner defender paying attention to Harris, Furphy makes a subtle relocation to the side, and he now has more than enough daylight to beat the late closeout as he makes the open three-pointer. Well, I definitely envision Furphy's floor spacing ability and effort being a great fit in OKC's movement-heavy offense, but obviously in the NBA, Furphy will have to be more than just an off-ball player. The thing is, in college, with Kansas having a ton of on-ball initiators, Furphy wasn't really asked to generate offense for himself. Well, to be fair, Furphy isn't very shifty with a ball and is not necessarily an explosive off-the-bounce athlete. But I think the good thing is, despite the limited sample size of just 12 shot attempts he took in isolation, Furphy has still displayed solid straight-line driving ability while being capable of finishing at the rim using either hand, and has also shown flashes of clean dribble-to-shot transfer mechanics when pulling up from the mid-range. Early on, he wouldn't be asked to do a lot on ball in OKC anyway, and with a ton of initiators on the team, Furphy can simply take his time developing as a shot creator while still thriving as a spot-up shooter, as a cutter, or as an outlet in transition. Although on the defensive end, I think Furphy's impact can actually be apparent early on. In college, he produced a 1.8 steal rate, a 0.9 block rate, and a 1.8 defensive box plus-minus rating, which according to College Basketball Stats database are very similar to Trey Murphy's numbers during his pre-draft season. Well, we're not sure if he's gonna be as good as Trey Murphy defensively in the NBA because he's not as much of an above-the-rim defender, but Furphy actually has solid fundamentals on defense, and just like on the offensive end, he's also constantly moving as a defender. He's got great disruptive instincts, and together with his 6'8.5" wingspan, he's able to jump off passing lanes to get steals, and is also very adept at defending on the ball even against smaller and quicker players in space. At the very least, he should be a capable team defender in OKC with the potential to be a constantly switchable forward who could defend both small guards and bigger wings once he fills out his frame. So overall, drafting a 6'8" guy like Johnny Furphy, who at 19 years old can already step into the NBA as a high-level floor spacer, but who also brings size, defense, rebounding, and a ton of effort, I think wouldn't be a bad move for OKC at all. So thank you guys if you've actually made it this far into the video, but who do you actually want the OKC Thunder to select on draft night? Feel free to drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.